All right, this is tape number 9, and tape number 9 is about entitlements. And I've discussed entitlements in the classes, but I thought I would just go over it again as a refresher. Okay, so entitlements, we're talking about two different things. And entitlements are called entitlements because you're entitled to them simply by virtue of your age. So the two entitlements are Medicare, health care for older people, 65 and older, and Social Security. Which is income for older people. Now, you have to pay into these programs. There's certain requirements that you have, or you can marry someone and take advantage of theirs if they die. You could also have a parent die and get their Social Security as well. But the general concept is the same. Basically, when you reach a certain age, you're entitled to these things. Okay? Now, again, there's exceptions. The Texas retirement system, you pay into that instead of Social Security. There's things like that. But as a general rule, for most Americans, once you reach a certain age, you're entitled to Medicare and Social Security. Okay? Now, as I've said before, the concept behind these is pay as you go. And by that, it's very simple. Current workers pay Medicare and Social Security. These are called payroll taxes. You pay these. Look at your pay slip. Social Security is called FICA. You pay these, and the money goes to current senior citizens. So the money that you pay right now goes to those over the age of 65. It goes to your parents if they're old enough, goes to your grandparents, goes to aunts, uncles, whatever. Okay? It is not saved for you. So while you pay into the system, and the system keeps track of how much you paid, it doesn't go to you. Okay? And instead, your Medicare and Social Security will be paid by your kids or your grandkids. All right? That's how this whole system is set up. Pay as you go. Social Security was created in the 1930s. Medicare in the 1960s. Okay? So these are the basic systems. Okay? Now, this works really, really well with one exception. You have to have enough workers going. So when they were created, there was 15 workers for every one retiree. So that's a system that made a lot of money. But, especially with the baby boomers, my generation, as we've moved towards retirement, the number of workers has declined. Also, the amount of time you live has declined. The average age was 58, the average age of death back in the 1930s. Today, it's 78. So people are living longer. They're getting more money out of the system. And there's more of us entering into the system. So as a consequence, the current ratio is about 3 workers to every 1 retiree. This still works. But as the baby boom generation continues along, the baby boom generation is turning this 3-to-1 eventually down to 2-to-1. 2-to-1 no longer works. 2 workers for every 1 retiree does not work. And as a consequence, the system is going to run out of money. Medicare is expected to go bankrupt in about 2021. So in other words, next year. Congress can come along, and Congress has in the past given it money so that it doesn't go bankrupt. Social Security is expected to go in about 2039. And at that point, there will not be enough money from workers to pay for all the retirees. As a consequence, the retirement pay for retirees will be cut. Okay? They'll get something because there's always workers, but they won't get as much as they're entitled to. So, as an example, my wife and I will be included in this group of retirees. We are planning now, we're saving more just because this is a looming reality. Okay? Now, how do we fix this demographic problem? And we talked about this in class. There's 4 ways to fix it. One way is you increase taxes. So, the money that you're paying now in payroll taxes, you simply take more of it out. Currently, it's about 8%. Why not 10%? Okay, that's what some are talking about. Number 2, increase the retirement age. You increase the retirement age. So, instead of retiring at 67, by the way, all of you born after after 1961, you can't retire until you're 67. So you increase the age, some say, until 70. Okay? By the way, it used to be 65 that you could retire, but Congress was aware of this problem, so they raised the retirement age to 67. All right? So if you're born like my wife in 1961, she can't reach full retirement, full Social Security until the age of 67. Okay? So, a second possibility, is to raise the retirement age to age 70, for example. A third possibility is the means test. So, the idea is very simple. If you've got the means, you don't get the money. And this idea came from some of the wealthiest people in this country. Warren Buffett, as an example, Bill Gates is another one. Both of them are eligible for Social Security. Both of them get Social Security checks of a couple $1,000 each month. Do they need it? No, they don't. And they think that they're receiving it is wrong. So what they're proposing is that those who make, and this is just an example, more than $100,000 a year in retirement, they don't get Social Security. So that's a means test, and it simply says to the wealthiest people, sorry, you may have contributed to this, you're not getting it. Okay? By the way, any of these 3 would take this 2-to-1 ratio, and it would be the equivalent of a 3-to-1 ratio. Okay? So it would help this, and it would save the system. The system would be solvent. The fourth way, and we talked about this briefly in class, is that people of your generation have more kids. You have more kids, then you'll move this 2-to-1 ratio to 3-to-1 because those kids will become workers, they'll have jobs, they'll pay into the system, and when they pay into the system, more money's in the system, more money in the system, then there's more money for those who are retired. Okay, so this is the whole entitlement situation here. And this is a real issue that confronts the United States. And let's be honest, it's a scary issue. Senior citizens vote. I've said that before in other tapes, but senior citizens vote. And because they vote, politicians are very concerned that as time goes along, and if they haven't dealt, especially with the Social Security problem, senior citizens are going to turn against them because they're going to ask, who is going to protect my Social Security? Okay, so politicians are very cognizant of this issue. One other thing I need to bring up, President Trump, in trying to stimulate the economy, has proposed, and in fact has issued an executive order, that payroll taxes not be paid for the rest of this year. that largely affects those who work for the federal government and the military. The idea is they'll have more money and they'll spend it. The flaw in the program is that they have to repay the money they didn't get taxed. They're still going to have to pay it. They're just going to pay it next year. So what he's doing is he's cutting their taxes in 2020, but he's going to recoup those taxes in 2021. I'm not sure how much stimulus that's going to work. The scary thing about that, though, is that any cut in payroll taxes means there's less money for Social Security and Medicare. As a consequence, Congress is opposed to the idea of cutting payroll taxes. They do not like that at all. Okay? Because they know that at some point, this is going to bite them. Okay? So, that's Entitlements, our Social Security Medicare program.